Several of y'all have asked me questions, but this is really in response to Romby because he asked probably the most well-rounded question. So I'm gonna use this video to respond to him, but also to kind of answer some questions that you may not have thought to ask that he asked, because he asked some pretty good questions. Question number one: what made you choose project management? I was working at a job, and I'm going to try to do the abbreviated version, but basically I was working at a job, and my boss told me all this stuff about project management, a man who I really respect. And he was telling me about how his son was a project manager, and he's this big wig at a banking company, and so at a bank. But he was my boss at the time, and he was telling me how hard it was to get the credential, and I thought I could do it, but then he expressed doubt. He was almost like well, you got a ways to go. And I was reading through the descriptions of it, and I was like, no, I think you kind of don't really know what I know, or what I really am doing. And technically, as I researched it, it was like I think I know way more about project management than you would know. I didn't say that to him, but I was thinking that in my mind in terms of him doubting me. And so they made me draft this job description for a project manager, and I thought for sure I was going to get this job because I was already doing project management and showed interest in it. And they hired this other guy who wasn't even a credentialed project manager, who really didn't know what he was doing, and I really got really frustrated with that. Then they started passing off his ideas as my ideas in meetings. And so I got frustrated to the point where I actually walked out of a meeting for the first time in my career because they were trying to lavish praise on this guy who really had just stolen ideas that I gave to him and needed my help to even push them through. And so I was studying for the PMP. I ended up switching over because the thing that was revealed to me about project management is that we all do it every day. We're just not intentional about it, which wastes a lot of time. So a lot of people are project managers and don't know it. People get the imposter syndrome when they're applying for the test. They're like, I don't have the hours. You probably do. You just don't realize that you were managing a project, albeit probably inefficiently and ineffectively, relative to what you could do as a certified project manager or someone who studied and practiced at it. You don't even have to have a certification. I think the value of the certification is actually in prepping for the exam, because that's where you get the knowledge from. I recently had some friends pass the PMP, and the thing you have to consider when you're planning to take the test, if you're worried about it, is this is just a step in your journey. Even if you fail, you've amassed more knowledge than you had before. So don't stress about that too much. Let yourself off the hook a little bit. A lot of people fail the first time when they take the exam. Just make sure you don't give up. What do you love about project management? What do you hate? What I love about it is that it simplifies things. The end of that story was I went to a new job. And then I just continued my path and got my project management certification because I knew I could do it, and it opened up a lot more windows for me, including I taught at the graduate level for USC for a couple of years as a result of having the certification. I would not have been able to get that job because I'm teaching people who are getting advanced degrees, possibly beyond what my advanced degree is in. It opens a lot of windows. I get recruited for it all the time. What do you love about project management? What do you hate? What I love about it is it makes things make sense. I can predict project failures. I can predict some operational failures sometimes because of the lack of project focus. And people will try to set up operations all the time. And they should not. They really should be setting up a temporary project to get the work done so they can release the resources and it will cost them less money. What I hate about it is the knowledge. Sometimes I'm in situations, often at my job, where there's inconsistent focus on project management as a discipline, and I'll be able to predict the problem or see what the problem is, and another person can't because they never took the time to respect the discipline. Or when people say things like, oh, it's a part of everybody's job, but then they don't put forth intentional efforts for everybody to understand that. Like at my job, we would all benefit from a base level understanding of business analysis and project management. Business analysis being that you're basically finding out what the requirements are for the solution. You're vetting solutions, you're looking at what the best choice is and making that choice. And then project management is you implementing that solution. So what makes a person a good project manager? People who are very task oriented are better project managers. Sometimes you're the pesterer in chief for people, like you're the polite reminder, hey, you didn't, how are we doing on that thing? And then the other thing is, if you can learn how to influence people to do things without having direct control over them, that's great, because some organizations will empower the project manager. They'll basically end up being the ultimate person who has control over all the resources. But more often you'll find people are serving two masters. They have their operational boss, and then they have the project boss. And the operational boss wins every time because that's the person that keeps you employed. Hold on one second. My wife is watching Mickey Mouse with my son in the front room. Okay, so What are the most important competencies that a project manager needs? If you're task oriented, that's great. Being able to be a conceptual thinker and think beyond the immediacy of what's happening, seeing long term impacts, and your ability to adapt. Change management is a thing that people don't focus on that much, as well as risk management. And those are two things that I think are probably the most impactful for the things that I look at. Being able to navigate change and maintain focus on the scope of the project versus trying to please all these different stakeholders. If you have good interpersonal skills, that's great too. In terms of that, people I've seen, I work in the IT industry, so people in my industry, sometimes personalities are very interesting. And so it takes a little bit more coercion to get stuff done. And sometimes you have to get people to do things that are in their best interest, even if they don't realize that they're in their best interest at the moment. What is a day in the life of a project manager? So basically being timely, doing your actual work, doing the calculations up front, and then making sure you touch base. A person that takes initiative, that looks forward and tries to anticipate challenges is going to be better at being a project manager than me, but you got to be able to have that day-to-day focus. Your job is to be an executioner in a sense, and not in the sense of murdering people, but to execute on other people's ideas or maybe your own ideas. And so the question is, can you manage that within the constraints of time, cost, and scope? And so that's what I would look at. How effective am I at managing the budget? How am I effective at managing my time, managing other people's time, and maintaining focus on what's important for us to get done in the time frame of the project? What is a day in the life of a project? So I'm a program manager at my job. I'm a senior technology strategist. I facilitate the implementation and support of technology solutions for the academic units at the University of Oklahoma. I manage a team of about 14 people that consists of strategists, specialists that do device support, and they do some business analysis and project work. Strategists that are responsible for technology strategy for individual colleges. So they're like the IT directors for their colleges, and they have to basically be able to do BA and PM work. And then I also manage sysadmins and some other contexts. I basically manage the project managers. I don't have anybody who is a dedicated full-time project manager. A day in the life of a project manager at our job is going to be somebody who has a more consistent project approach. So they'll probably be more waterfall. They have predictable work. So think of somebody working on construction projects or building things that they've repetitively built that we have previous experience with. I've learned that the industry is more agile. And as we constrain on resources, I've learned that I had to cross-train my people. So my strategists all can manage projects effectively. I've had them manage enterprise projects. And what it looks like is you wake up in the morning, you look at, it depends on what phase of the project you're in. You're following the steps along those paths of the project lifecycle. But once you're into the basis of the executing phase, you look at the tasks that are on your chart. What's the timeliness of those? Who's supposed to be working on what? Are there any issues, action items that you have if you're a working project manager? And then you basically are touching base with people, but also building rapport with them, because the relationships will matter a lot. And they'll matter more as you move forward in an organization, because you're going to want to build the connective tissue for future projects. A lot of people will act like this project is the last time they're going to see somebody. It's going to be sayonara and I never have to work with you again. But that creates problems because they don't build sustainable, lasting relationships with people. And then you end up seeing that same person on the next project and you're like, oh man, I really wish I would have kept things more copacetic with people. When in reality, you could have built somebody who could be an ally and an asset and help you bridge the gap with new team members of the next project. Will my certificate help me get opportunities in the industry? It's not a PMI. It's a certification, though, from Colorado State. PMI is the most recognized. So I don't know what Colorado State is selling. I will tell you this. When I was teaching at USC, they could have offered a certificate and it would not have been as robust to me as what we were doing for PMI. Now, that being said, it depends on how far you're going with your own personal individual study. And I'm a very thorough studying person, and I was only teaching one course at USC, and it was an introduction to project management. And so from the certificate that you get, you'll get the base level competencies, I think, but I would go for the cert. I would go for the PMI cert, and Google's coming up with a certification soon. And I would look at getting both of those, because Google's going to do this thing where you take a 3-month course on like Coursera or something like that, and they're going to treat that as the equivalent of a 4-year degree in the company. So I'm trying to be as well-rounded as possible. That's why I have the Waterfall certification, which is the PMP, and then I also have the Agile certification, which is more focused on Agile project management, which is more directly applicable to what we do on a daily basis. Is it difficult to get into a job as a project manager? You already manage projects. There's contract work, which is there's risk associated with that. If you want to do that, then that's up to you. I would not choose to do contract work first myself. I personally would try to get a more full-time gig. But what I look at project management as is an ancillary skill to what I currently do. So I'm actually moving people. I'm helping to facilitate the implementation and support of technology solutions, right? And so I can go into a place and I'm putting on different hats at different times. I have my Lean Six Sigma hat on sometimes. Sometimes I have on my project management hat. Sometimes I have on my BA hat. Sometimes I have on my strategist hat. Sometimes I have on my manager, my boss hat. And so it's just another tool in your toolkit that you're going to use. As you'll find out, you're not going to use all of the project management skills every day on every project. That would be crazy. But it's good to know what you can do in certain situations. One of the best things you can do, though, is read about other projects or listen to other project managers who are dealing with similar issues to what you're dealing with, because I found it to be the most revelatory to me when it comes to understanding what they're facing and how I can not have to repeat the same mistakes as them, looking at their lessons learned. So hopefully that helps. I've been recruited the most for jobs because I got my PMP, and I have 4 degrees. I also have several certifications, but the PMP is the thing that I've seen on job applications where it's like, you cannot have this job unless you have a PMP. When I got recruited to teach at USC, I was recruited and I did not want to do it. I actually rejected it several times because I didn't want to have the commitment of the time, and I was worried about my time. But the main thing, way I was able to teach with doctors, was because I had my PMP, and I only have an MBA and a Master's in Adult and Higher Education Administration, but I could teach doctoral candidates even with the PMP because it's considered to be a terminal certification in that industry. And so that's the end all be all of it. I hope that helps. I know that was long, but you asked a couple of questions, and if there's other questions, let me know. It don't take nothing for me to just pop this camera up and just record. It's easier for me to talk more naturally to you like this versus having to type all that out. Like that 12 minutes typed out. Nah, that wouldn't have been good. All right. Good luck, man. Let me know what you need, and if you need to know what prep materials you want to use for the PMP. The exam is changing in January, so keep that in mind.